Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're live, like always, right here in Lubbock, Texas, at the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios, and we're on the radio live for 98.7 Lubbock, 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, whatever it is. I almost mixed it up. 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM, Lubbock Christian Nation. We are live on the radio. Why are we live on the radio? Because there might be somebody out there tonight who wants to talk about health. That's why we're live on the radio. That's why we come to you like that. We get on the radio. We talk to you. We're coming to you. You might be in one of these little towns around Lubbock. You might be listening to us on 1420 AM, Lubbock Christian Nation. You might want to have somebody share some information with you about health. That's why we're live on the radio. We're trying to share that with you. And then we're coming to you on all of our social media pages. The Rock Health and Wellness Center is on Facebook, at Health from the Rock on YouTube, and also on X. One of my ladies just asked me yesterday. She's like, "Do you have any of these? Have you done any of these talks where you have any of this recorded that I could listen to?" And I said, "I do. I got about 9 months. Let's see, September, October, November, December, January, and then shoot, we got, what is this? 6, 5.5? Yeah. So September, October, November, December." That's 4 months from last year, 5 months. Yeah, we're getting close to 10 months. I think at the end of this month, we'll have 10 months worth of information for you. And it's all on there. It's on YouTube at Health from the Rock. You can go back and watch any of these shows. Sometimes it's hard to watch, but if you want to bad enough, it's kind of like Coach Dykes used to say, he had a 100% graduation rate. Yep, everybody who wanted to graduate did. So if you want to get this information, if you want to make your life better, if you want to shine your light as bright as you possibly can, if that's what you're all about, then, hey, that's what we're about. So that's where it's out there for you. You can get it done. We have had a fantastic week, just like always. And we've been busy. We've been learning stuff. We've been adjusting to some changes here in the office. It's always a great opportunity that we have to see if we can get better every week. And I had an opportunity this morning to go speak to the New Neighbors Club over at the Lubbock Women's Club. And Miss Virginia got me over there. She's a sweet lady and has gotten me multiple times to come speak to her groups. And so we got over there this morning. And so it was always fun. It's just fun to talk to those ladies, show them a little bit about the brain, talk to them about flexor muscles and neuropod cells and all that stuff. They just kind of look at me funny like I have no idea what you're talking about. But we tried to be entertaining, and we tried to be as educational as possible. And I think maybe some of them got it just a little bit. Sometimes it takes multiple repetitions. You gotta just hear it and hear it and hear it and hear it. And that it took me 12 years. It took me 12 years from the first time I heard it to the time I got it. And I'm really hoping that it doesn't take you 12 years. I hope you can get it way faster because maybe someone's saying it to you in a way that you can kind of understand health. And if you got health and you're awesome at health and you've got it all figured out, then maybe we can, maybe you could teach me something. You can send me a text, 806-794-0400. Send me a text. Teach me something about health. I would love it. I by no means know it all. I don't think anybody does. I think it's a lifetime journey for that we're all on, and what we're trying to do. I really think what we're trying to do is we're trying to play to win. And in athletics, there's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose. And anybody that's ever been in athletics kind of understands that. Like you got to play to win. And I think a lot of times. I was having this conversation this week about vitamin D levels, and gentleman's vitamin D level was 24, and it's like, hey, that's low. And they said, well, what does it need to be? And I said, well, it depends on if you're playing to win or you're playing not to lose. If you're playing not to lose, it needs to be above 30 or 40. Women and men, that's kind of the range that they consider whoever they is, the gurus of they consider to be the standard, the minimum level of vitamin D. Well, the minimum level is playing not to lose, in my opinion. It gets you just above the level of disease process. So if you're down in the 20s, you need to get your vitamin D level up, right? And that's what I told him. I said, hey, we got to get you taking your vitamin D. Well, but if you're playing to win, maybe your vitamin D level needs to be up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s. Now it's a totally different thing, right? Same thing with fish oils. Same thing with any of your vitamins that you see. Same thing with your fitness. You can play to win with your fitness, or you can play not to lose with your fitness. There's lots of ways. Same thing with your nervous system. Same thing with the way that whether you get adjusted for pain management or you get adjusted for wellness, it's the same deal. So we got to talk to them. It was fun this morning. We got to talk to the ladies over there and had good questions that I had to actually get out of there. And then Brenda Garcia from over at United Grocery Stores was right after me. And I've known Brenda for quite some time, and she's been quite instrumental in my health. Talk about people who've influenced me. She probably had one of the biggest sentences 2 years and 3 months ago that got me to quit eating sugar. So I really appreciate that conversation. But she was right after me, so I said, they started asking me questions, and I said, hey, Brenda can answer that. She'll talk to you about nutrition and give you all the information that you need. So I can't wait to talk to her and hear how that went and see if she got all those questions answered. But before we get into, because what we're doing tonight is we're talking about doctors who've influenced me. And man, I was bummed last night. I really, we had such a good show going. I'm so appreciative of Dr. Robert Lustig and Dr. Dale Bredesen and their work. And we were talking about that, and we were talking about all of the stuff that I learned from those guys. And I looked down, and my little microphone has a little green light on it, and I looked down, and there was nothing. And so I was like, well, this is fantastic. There's no sound. And so I look on the software up here, no sound. I got no sound. So I went back afterwards, and I was eating supper last night, and I went back and looked at it. And it was like 10 minutes of dead, no sound. And it was very disheartening. It was like losing a game. That's exactly what it was like. It was like losing a game. And because you had a good game plan, you thought you were playing well, and then all of a sudden just messed it up. So that's what we're doing. We're talking about doctors who influenced me. But one of the sentences, one of the things Miss Virginia said this morning was she pointed out. She said, "Hey, you told us that you used to play quarterback at Tech, and you told us that, but you never told us that you coached, and where you coached." And I was like, okay, well, and so I went over that with them. And then she said something about, she's like, that little thing you have on your wall about being prepared. And I was on the rowing machine this morning in the middle of my workout, and I was thinking about what we had talked about in the past about what is the definition of health? How do you define health? How much health do you need, right? And you need enough health to try to win the day. You need enough health to try to win your life. You need enough health to try to maximize your life. That's what you need, right? You need to be prepared for whatever's coming at you today. You got to beat all the days in front of you with your health. And you don't know what it is. It may be a brain tumor that's coming at you, like Dr. Housewright is dealing with, and he's really down to his last few days, I think, or last few hours. He was super influential. We talked about him on Wednesday, but he came across something that was bigger than what his health was ready for. Now, I'm not saying it was his fault. I don't know why he got a glioblastoma. I don't know why he got a brain tumor, but that was bigger. It was bigger than us, right? When your diagnosis is cancer, when your diagnosis is heart disease, when your diagnosis is some sort of chronic thing, lupus or whatever your thing may be, right? You lose your health. Your health loses the game, and so you have to be prepared. Well, I have this thing that's on my wall, and I don't really think much of it, but I did put it up there as just to share a little piece of me with my patients that come into the office. And Virginia said, you should read that to people sometime. And so I thought I'd just read it to you guys. It's just I took a little picture of it. If you guys on social media, I'll put it up there. And it just says, be prepared. Learned to throw a football at age 5. Started playing football at age 6. 5 seasons, 60 games, city championship. 6 more seasons, 55 games, 2 state championships. All-star team, all-state honors, 7-on-7 tournament champs, full college scholarship to Eastern New Mexico. Another season, 10 more games. Left there, walked on at Texas Tech. 22 seasons of practice. No, 2 more seasons of practice. 22 games. No playing, practice. Off season, during the season, just practice. 22 games. Countless blisters, countless hours of meetings and film study, countless hours of weight room and summer running. 1 shoulder surgery and months of rehab. Battled for the number 2 position. 6 more games. So this now is 153 total football games that I had played in or participated in or was on a team of. 153 games. And then in the second quarter of the game against SMU, our starter gets hurt and our team is down 19-7. So I go into for the very first play. The first play, Coach Winder looks at me and says 27 bootleg, which is a pass play. I heard him say 27 stretch because I was thinking in my brain we'd just run the ball. And as I started onto the field, I got about where the numbers are, and I turned back around and I looked at him and I said, he said 27 bootleg. Crap. So we're going to run a pass play on the first play. So first play, 27 bootleg, touchdown pass to Lloyd Hill. 2 more touchdown passes that day. Texas Tech defeats SMU. And what did I get for that? I got the equitable Jason Clemmons Offensive Player of the Week, Texas Tech versus SMU, 10-24-1992, Southwest Conference Offensive Player of the Week for that performance. Before that game started, nobody knew who I was. Before that game started, there was just my family. There's just my mom and dad, my girlfriend who became my wife. There was just a handful of people. There was people in Roswell knew who I was, but the world didn't know who I was before that game started. My teammates didn't even know who I was before that game started. When we ran 27 bootleg and we threw a touchdown pass on the first play, I came over to the sideline and my teammates were just looking at me like, wow, who is this guy? Like, what is the deal? And then there was 2 more touchdown passes right there that we threw. I'm pretty sure we didn't throw any interceptions that game. And so they were like, whoa, dude, I thought you were just the walk-on guy that got yelled at every single day. I didn't know you could play. It was really cool. It was really cool because I knew who I was. They didn't know who I was. And I knew that I was prepared. And I knew that I had played in 100. I didn't know that there was 153 games, but I knew I'd been playing since I was 6. That wasn't the first time I ever took a snap. I'd won 2 state championships. I knew how to play quarterback. They just didn't know that I knew how to play quarterback. And so I was prepared in the moment that I was called upon, and I got rewarded for that. And whatever that means. I mean, the guy that I beat out through 7 touchdowns down at Houston that day, but somehow he didn't get the Offensive Player of the Week in the conference, and I got the Offensive Player of the Week in the conference. So I just shared that. Virginia said you ought to share that with somebody, and so I thought I would share it with you, and just let you know that you don't ever know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't know what today is going to bring when it comes to your health. And it's sometimes it could be too late. Sometimes if you're not prepared, if you're not doing your workouts, if you're not eating your food properly, if you're not taking your vitamins, if you're not getting your sleep, and then all of a sudden you're called upon, your health is called upon, you might not win. I had a patient whose sister died in this on Saturday. Just a tragic situation. 30-something-year-old lady, girl, just a brand new mom. Something was wrong, something I don't know. But it's like, man, it's just really it's disappointing. It's disappointing when we're not prepared. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing tonight. You're listening to this. That's what we're doing. If you're listening to this on the radio, if you come back and listen to this weekend, that's what we're doing. We're getting prepared, right? We're trying to get ourselves ready. We're trying to get our bodies ready to face whatever it is that tomorrow might bring, so that we can win the day, so that we can change the world, so that we can shine our lights bright into the world, so that we can make a difference in our communities, so that we can make a difference in our state and in our nation and in our world. That's what we're trying to do with our health. So let's talk about some of these guys that influenced me. So we talked about Dr. Mark Hyman. We talked about Dr. Rick Housewright and Dr. John Demartini early in the week. Last night in our feeble attempt of a show, we talked about Dr. Robert Lustig and Dr. Dale Bredesen. And these are in no specific order. These are just guys that share their life with us, and I just happened to get a piece of it. And you could take some of the learning that I got from them, and you could put it in play. And I thought I would just share this week. I thought I would share it with you, and we may have a segment on this, because there's just so many doctors. I just started thinking about Dan Murphy last night. We were talking about that, and there's just so many different doctors out there that have influenced me. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple different ones, and just some thoughts and some of the things that I learned from them. And so one of my really good friends in chiropractic school, matter of fact, he just texted me today. His name is Dr. John Condi, and he runs the Condi Center for Chiropractic Neurology in Delray Beach, Florida. And you guys could, if you could Google him, the Condi Center. And he was our co-valedictorian of our class. Super smart dude, hard-working guy. But I don't know why. I don't know what drew it to him, why he got so drawn to it, or was so maybe because he's really smart. But I don't know why he got drawn to the neurology so early. That some of us didn't. So, but he started right off the bat in chiropractic school, just studying the neurology, and he got his diplomate in neurology. And so, Dr. Condi is one of those guys, one of my colleagues, one of my really good friends that influenced me even during chiropractic school in the idea of neurology and understanding neurology. It just took me a while to kind of get it going. And there was a Dr. Michael Hall. I've mentioned him before. He was a teacher at Parker College, and Dr. Hall he's kind of fussy sometimes, because lots of reasons. He's very confident in himself, but he also is very right. He's really dang smart too, and he's very right, and he has very low tolerance for wrong people, and so he probably could learn a little bit of tact, but he's really, really smart, and he just happened to be fussy during the time that I went through neurology in chiropractic school. So I didn't get Dr. Hall as a professor. And so, but Dr. Condi was going over to his clinic during chiropractic school and learning functional neurology and learning neurology, chiropractic neurology from Dr. Hall, who's one of the world's renowned chiropractic neurologists. So there was kind of a pathway there. There was a thread that was always going through, and it was, as a doctor, it's very disappointing when there's an answer, but you don't know how to do the answer. Like a little girl one time I had that really bad scoliosis, and her eyeballs were going like in the wrong direction. And she laid down on the table and she looked over at her mom. And then when she came back and looked with her head straight up, this eyeball came straight up, but this eyeball stayed over there looking at her mom. And so that whole neurological pathway was disrupted. And what the brain is doing is it's keeping that eyeball out of the way so that it can focus on one thing. and that messes up the whole neurology, and that messes up the whole spine, and it gives the girl scoliosis and all that sort of thing. And I knew that. I knew that there was a problem, but I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't have enough education. I didn't have enough in my tool bag to be able to make a difference for that little girl. And the parents thought I was wacko. And I was trying to explain to them that it was a neurological problem, and they took the daughter to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician told the parents that chiropractor is full of crap. And he didn't say that word, but you get the point. Well, he was wrong. I didn't say that the girl had a tumor. I said the girl had a neurological problem in the pathways that fired the eyeball that caused that to happen. And if you don't get that corrected, there's going to be lots of problems down the road. That was factual. And I knew that because I'd had lots of conversations with Dr. Condi from Florida about chiropractic neurology. And I'd studied a little bit of what Dr. Hall was talking about. And so I knew that there was a disruption there, but I didn't have the tools to work on it. So that's a very frustrating thing to do. And so as time kind of went on, went from 2005, and it would just, I'd have these cases. I'd have these cases that would come in, and I would just send Dr. Condi a text or give him a phone call, and I'd say, hey, dude, I got this. I got a 13-year-old girl, blah, 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 blah. Here it is. And he would just say, okay, adjust her on the right side, get her in a set of red glasses. Okay. All right. So, and then I'd try to piecemeal those cases together the best I could. And that just kind of went on there for a little while. And then I got my two guys from Roswell, MJ and Kati Lewis, that are dear friends of mine and like brothers and sisters in this whole thing, really. They came along, but they had gotten Dr. Hall. Dr. Hall had come back to Parker College, and now they had the chance, and Kati, I think, was the valedictorian of her class, and she was super smart, but she was also really, really interested in neurology, and so she spent a lot of time and got the experience with Dr. Hall. And so one weekend, MJ says to me, he says, hey, you want to go listen we got invited to go up to Denver and spend the day with Dr. Hall. You want to go? And I was like, dude, yes, I want to go. And so that was the first trip, somewhere around 2015, maybe 16. We went up there and I got to spend that day, and that kind of started my journey towards my functional neurology in my practice. Even though you can't take neurology out of chiropractic, and I'd been dabbling in it a little bit as we've gone on for a longer period of time, but finally I got to go sit with Dr. Hall. And then I just remember standing in MJ's living room at 1:30 in the morning, checking posture and looking at head tilt and internal rotation of a hand and a foot flare, and breaking down the neurology of how that is happening and what is happening in the brain and why is that firing that way. And then getting to spend time with my other dear friend, Dr. Joe Fraley in Ruidoso, who you guys know if you've watched the show. And Joe is basically a diplomate in neurology and a diplomate in orthopedics and a diplomate in acupuncture and a diplomate in just about everything you can think of. He's just a genius dude, hard-working guy. And so we just kind of bonded in a way that we spend some time together and we share stories with each other. And those guys influenced me. And they influenced me to be better. And then I got to go up there and actually go through a functional neurology certification program up with Dr. Hall back in Denver again. And so I went back up there again in a couple different trips. And so we got that, and now we can implement it in the practice. And now we can start working on, we can really start working on the brain. And we can really start working on how the brain is firing and what's going on, and understand the difference between the right brain and the left brain, and understand the difference between whether or not the cerebellum is firing or it's not firing. And I know that's kind of big words for a radio show, maybe, but the it matters. It really, really, really matters the way that our brains are firing. If your brain's not firing properly, then you're not going to function properly, and you're gonna have some specific symptoms based on how your brain is firing. And so that that rocked along a little bit, and then all of a sudden I ran into two clinical um, psychologists, clinical psychologists, not chiropractors, and we're fixing to take a break. And when we get back, I want to walk you through how these two guys, Dr. Jordan Peterson, Dr. Ian McGilchrist, took all of that stuff that those um, 10, 15 years of steps along the way to get me into functional neurology, and how the clinical psychology world basically just pulled it all together for us. So we're going to take a break, and then when we get back, I'll try to map that out for you. It's kind of funny. The Maps of Meaning is the name of the book. And I'll read a little bit of it and explain to you why it is the most difficult book I ever tried to read. But thank goodness the Master and his emissary came along. So we'll be right back right after these messages with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Yeah, I just, you start thinking about, it's been a great week. It's been a great week to think about the people who have influenced me. Because when you start thinking about the people who influence you, man, that list just keeps growing and growing. And you think, well, man, these big time guys like Dr. Peterson. I mean, Dr. Peterson has, I don't know if you guys know, if you know who that is, but let me see just if, yeah, he's got 8.4 million followers on Instagram. I mean, he's doing a 50 city tour right now. Speaking of those who wrestle with God, or something to that effect, like that. His YouTube channel, he would just post things on his YouTube channel. Let me see, because I've been following him for quite some time. Let me see what his channel here. Yeah, 7.97 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. And how did he influence me? Well, one of the things he did is he said, "Hey, I just started putting all my lectures online." He was lecturing at the University of Toronto, and he said, I just started putting all my lectures online, and I just wanted to see what would happen." And I think it's like, wow, and I thought, maybe you should just start putting all your lectures online and just see what happens. Maybe you should start sharing information with the people out there that you share information with. Share the information that you know about health and wellness and chiropractic, and then just see what happens. And that's really what we're doing right now. We're trying to do that every single day, 5 days a week, and share that information with you. And it was the influence of Dr. Peterson that got me going right there. So let me get us back on here. Hang on. Okay, so we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. If you guys have a question, send us a text, 806-794-0400. I'd be glad to talk to you. But we're talking about doctors who influence me. And I just said this during the break, but you guys that are listening to us on the radio, I tell you, if you start writing down all the people who influence you, that list just becomes longer and longer and longer. And you're really surprised how many people that influence you are on your level or at your level, or your contemporaries or your friends. That's what one of the things that I've discovered. I started thinking about all the people who influenced me. I started thinking about my staff doctors in chiropractic school. I started thinking about the doctors who were friends with Dr. Housewright. I started thinking about like every one of these stations along the way. Like, man, there's just a lot of these, and some of guys are my guys. There's a guy here in town named Tracy Wilson. He's like a huge, got a great practice, fantastic with kids, been taking care of kids for 20 something years, maybe as good as anybody in the country when it comes to pediatric chiropractic. And he does all kinds of chiropractic, and he's a wellness guy, and he's a super great business guy, and there's lots of influence right there too. So it's been an enjoyable experience. And if you want to try it, you should try it yourself, because it's been a very enjoyable experience. The doctors who've influenced me, some of them suck. Some of not none of the guys that I mentioned, but some of the guys that I haven't mentioned have also influenced me. I don't want to be anything like them. That's an influence. I don't want to be like those guys. They're horrible, and so that's a way that they influence you too. So let's get back on track. So I'm talking. I'm going through this neurology thread. I'm going through this whole process, and then Jordan Peterson comes along just out of the blue, and he gets. If you guys don't know him, let me read about Jordan Peterson right here. It says Dr. Jordan Peterson is an author, psychologist, online educator, and professor emeritus at the University of Toronto. The Jordan B. Peterson podcast frequently tops the charts in the education category. He has written 3 books, Maps of Meaning, an academic work presenting a new scientifically grounded theory of religious and political belief, and the best-selling 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Order, which have sold more than 7 million copies, and I have copies of all 3 of those books. I got Maps of Meaning right here. I got 12 Rules for Life right there on the end of the table. Yep, and then I think I've got Beyond Order over here on the other bookshelf. But with his wife Tammy, Dr. Peterson's international lecture tours have sold out more than 400 venues, providing live insight into the structure of mythology and narrative to hundreds of thousands of people. He's just a deep thinker, and he's a hard worker, and he got really popular over a subject that completely got blown up. It was one of the best examples of haters, what haters will do for you. So you should love your haters. They will make you popular. Those people that hate your show, hate your stance, whatever, they'll just make you popular. And that's exactly what happened to him. It was over some transgender law that Canada was passing, that you had to use a person's preferred pronouns. And he said, bullcorn, I'm not doing that. You can't make me call somebody Z or Zer or whatever. And of course, everybody blew it out of proportion. They said he was transphobic and all the rest of that stuff. And anybody with a brain could listen to him speak and understand that absolutely not that way. He's absolutely not that way. But it got blown up, and that's what made him popular. And thank goodness it did, because that's how I found him. And when I found him, I started listening to him, and I've probably listened to I don't know how many hundred of hours I've listened to Dr. Peterson. I just started going through his lectures. I probably could get a degree from the University of Toronto in some sort of psychology 101 just by going up and of all the lectures that I listened to online. And then he's got a self-authoring program. I've been through that. He does a personality profile type of thing. I've been through that. I've done that work. And so his book came out. And so I got it, man. I'm like, all right, Maps of Meaning. And I think I actually got it first on my phone. And so I started trying to listen to it on my phone. And that did not work. That did not work because it was just so hard. And what he tries to do is it's the architecture of belief. He tries to explain to us what he has studied in why we believe what we believe. And he said, I don't know. He said some story he said was about like reading this book, writing this book. He worked for 3 hours a day for, I don't know, 4 years or something, writing this book. He said he wrote every sentence 50 times, and he said, I don't know if I could write it. I'm not saying I wrote the best sentence that that there is. He just said, I just can't write it any better. And when you read it, it is just, it's so thick. It's so hard. And it's really worse than hard. It's unnecessary. Like he's really writing this book for like 12 people. He's writing this book for 12 people. Like there's not very many people out there that could read this book and understand. There's no sense in it being in the language and the vocabulary. It's like, dude, what's the point? It's you're not helping us by reading this book. But I just wanted to read just a little bit to kind of give you just kind of give you a little bit of what the book is about and what he's trying to teach. Okay, and it's going to tie into the other part, but this says to explore something, to quote discover what it is. That means most importantly to discover its significance for motor output within a particular social context, and only more particularly to determine its precise objective sensory or material nature. This is knowledge in the most basic of senses, and is often constitutes sufficient knowledge. See what I mean? It's like, if you're listening to that, you're like, what did he just say? Right? But he said, imagine that a baby girl toddling around in the course of her initial tentative investigations reaches up onto a countertop to touch a fragile and expensive glass sculpture. She observes its color, sees its shine, feels that it is smooth and cold and heavy to the touch. Suddenly, her mother interferes, grasps her hand, and tells her not to ever touch that object again. The child has just learned a number of specifically consequential things about the sculpture, has identified its sensory properties, certainly, how it feels, how it touches, how it's cold, right? More importantly, however, she has determined that approached in the wrong manner, the sculpture is dangerous, at least in the presence of mother, has discovered as well that the sculpture is regarded more highly in its present unaltered configuration than the exploratory tendency, at least once again by mother. The baby girl has simultaneously encountered an object from the empirical perspective and its socio-cultural determined status. The empirical object might be regarded as those sensory properties intrinsic to the object. The status of the object, by contrast, consists of its meaning, consists of its implication for behavior. Everything a child encounters has a dual nature, experienced by the child as part of a unified totality. Everything is something and means something, and the distinction between essence and significance is not necessarily drawn. And so that's a deep thought, and I know it's probably would be great if I read it again, but I'm not going to. But what Dr. Peterson is saying is that it's how we orient ourselves, in our environment, and how we understand what things mean and whether or not they're threatening or not threatening. Because what does that actually mean for our health, right? What does it mean if we don't understand the difference between, or what does it mean if we define things as threatening? What does it do physiologically to us? What does it do neurologically to us? That's the passionate thing for me, right? What happened to the little girl when she reached up for this expensive sculpture? Nothing. Nothing happened. She was just exploring her environment, right? She didn't know anything about this sculpture. She's just exploring her environment. She's a little toddler. That's what toddlers do. They explore their environment. Except to the mother, that thing all of a sudden had meaning. It didn't have any meaning beforehand. It was unknown. She was just all of a sudden she was just trying to learn what was going on and orient herself in her environment. But then her mother came along and now put a meaning on that sculpture that creates danger. It creates fear. It creates threat. And that threat has a physiology. And that threat has a neurology. And your cortisol levels are going to fire. So just imagine you're that little girl, and now you've grown up to be a woman. And now you're a grown woman, but you've got this program. Don't touch that. Don't go there. Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't act that way. Don't you dare. Right? You got raised up in that type of environment. And so, how do you see the world? How do you orient yourself in the world? Maybe you attracted a man that's very much like that. So now you have a husband who does the same thing to you. What is it doing physiologically to you? What does it do to your cortisol levels? It fires them. What does it do to your right hemisphere? It fires it. How does your body react to that stress? Right? That is something that I didn't really get so much through my chiropractic education. There wasn't those deep conversations that I was able to understand. And so when Dr. Peterson came along, and hang on right now, because we're getting give me a quick second, because this is not going to happen 2 nights in a row. But just give me 5-second break right here. Hang on. That I saw my red light, so I put that up there tonight. So I saw my red light, so I could, because all of a sudden I got to get all these batteries straightened out up here. I got too many batteries on my desk. Whoops, that one's doing the same thing. I know. Don't go anywhere. This is life. Here we go. We're back green again. It's another set of batteries that are old. Okay, so we've got this. All right. If this one goes down, I'm going to have to run to the front and get some more batteries. So that it it is what it is. Okay, let's get back to it, because this is really important. So we're trying to orient ourselves in the world, and we go through these processes as kids that we don't really even understand. And through several hundred hours of lectures of Dr. Peterson, and reading the 12 Rules for Life, and reading Beyond Order, and understanding a different level of a clinical psychologist. Now I get clinical psychology brought into chiropractic, and those guys don't even realize what they're bringing to us. I don't think they really understand, because I don't really think chiropractors do a very good job of explaining what chiropractic is. I think chiropractic falls into that nonsense BS garbage of alternative and complementary medicine that the medical world tries to get us to fall into, and fill into some insurance company and do some sort of claim like that. And then now, as the patient, you fall into it. Now you want me to just adjust your back as a back pain guy. And it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. But chiropractors, the old guys, some of the old guys were very philosophical, and they knew that. Some of the guys like Dr. Housewright and Dr. DeMartini and those guys that I was talking about, they were saying some of that stuff, but they didn't take it to the next level. They didn't take it to the Michael Hall level and take that neurology and pull that neurology in there and talk about, okay, now let's talk about behavior based on neurology. and then take these guys, then let Jordan Peterson come in and help, and all of those guys, and Freud and Jung and all those guys that have been in the past that brought us to this place that these guys studied, to bring it, to share it to a guy like myself, who now can take it and implement it into the chiropractic adjustment inside my office and understand it, and be able to understand it is a kind of a cocky term, be able to recognize that it exists in a form that maybe you might could do something to help somebody with it. But Dr. Peterson, in his book, was so complicated. It was so hard. And his lectures are great. And I love his lectures. And I still listen to lots of his lectures. But then all of a sudden, it was during the process of the functional neurology with Dr. Hall, and that all of a sudden I found the master and his emissary. And now this book was the glue. This was the glue for me that changed my life. Like, I mean, it literally changed the direction of my practice. It literally changed the direction of my analysis of a patient. This book right here, Dr. McGilchrist, I hope to meet him before he passes away someday. Hopefully that's a long time from now. But I can't tell you how much this means to me, this book, and how much it means to you. Like, you have no idea the influence that this book has on your life and your health and your children's health and the way that things function, because he put it together. And he has a quote in here, kind of in the front of the book, and he's talking about science, and he says in science you can be perfunctory as long as you can be as perfunctory, I don't even know what that word means, perfunctory as you like, as long as you are saying what everybody else is saying. But if you are saying something different, you need, reasonably enough, to be as explicit about your evidence and as empirical based as possible. That way you're open to challenge, and that is how science progresses. And that, fair enough, right? If you're saying what everybody else is saying, you can say it in any way you want to say it, and it fits right along. We had this conversation this morning during one of the questions that the lady asked me was, I have a lot of knee problems, and I've been thinking that it's the knee problems because I've gone to the doctor, and the doctor tells me that I have a lot of arthritis in my knee. But now I'm starting to think maybe it's my frontal lobe. After this lecture, maybe it's my frontal lobe. And I said, well, I can tell you one thing. I think the diagnosis of arthritis is freaking hogwash. I think they lie. I think every one of them lies. I think every medical doctor and every chiropractor that tells a patient they have arthritis in their knee is just lying to the patient. And I think, and now what does that make me? That makes me an outlier, right? Because I didn't go along with what everybody else says. And I don't think I've ever met another doctor that says the same thing. I don't know any other doctors that agree with me. But I'm willing to stand on a line and say that that's a bunch of crap. I'm willing to say that you can't take an x-ray of a knee and tell a patient that they have arthritis in their knee. You can't see arthritis on an x-ray. What you can see is you can see degeneration. You can see decreased disc space. You can see bone spurring. You can see bone on bone. You can see bone changes. But to call that arthritis is a misnomer. It's wrong. Artho means joint, itis means inflammation. You can't call it that, right? So because of people like Dr. Hall and my contemporaries, like MJ and Katie and Joe and John in Florida, and because of, and Dr. Hall's really he's a contemporary too, but he's way advanced, right? So because of that, and then because of the pathway forward into Dr. Peterson, and then because of the pathway forward into Dr. McGilchrist, I feel confident enough to make that stand and put it on the internet for the entire world to see, and challenge all the other doctors in the world to quit telling people that the reason that their degeneration is the cause of their knee pain. Because I can show you, I guarantee you, you can find patients that have degeneration in their knee that don't have any knee pain. I can show you 100 x-rays within the next 48 hours of people that have degeneration in their spine that have no spinal pain. If they went to the doctor and the doctor took an x-ray of their neck and they saw the and the patient told the doctor, my neck hurts, and the doctor saw the degeneration in their neck, the doctor or the nurse practitioner or the PA or the chiropractor, whoever it might be, will tell that patient you have arthritis in your neck and that's what your pain is being caused from. And I can show you 100 x-rays that says that that's not true. That I could show you degeneration, some nasty degeneration in the spine of a person that doesn't have any pain in their spine. So what is going on in that particular case? Well, what's going on in that particular case is that they're not functioning properly and they have too much inflammation. Now, can the degeneration be the cause of the inflammation where now there's nothing we can do about it? Yes, that can happen. But I'm telling you that it's the chemistry that's going on inside the body and the abnormal movement of that joint, the biomechanics of that joint that's causing that to happen. So when Dr. McGilchrist came along, chapter 2 of this book, just chapter 2, what do the two hemispheres do? And I'll read just a little bit of it. How much neurological and neurophysiological evidence is there that the hemispheres really are that different? Or if there are differences that are consistent and significant patterns to the differences, rather than just a random carve up of functions according to the dictate of space. This toy cupboard model, which is represented by the traditional view that the brain functions are just accommodated according to where space can be found or made, and the one invoked to explain the residence of language function in the left hemisphere. Surely it may be said the really important differences are those between the many further subdivided functional and anatomical areas described by neuroscience within each hemisphere. Now, that doesn't really mean anything to you, but what he does in chapter 2, if it's just chapter 2 alone, what he breaks down in chapter 2 is the difference between the right and left hemisphere. What they do. Not that they don't do everything, not that there's not things that are happening simultaneously. Just like when we say that the left hemisphere has an affinity for dopamine, doesn't mean that the right hemisphere doesn't work on dopamine. It's not what we're saying. What we're saying is there's a little bit more of a love for dopamine on the left hemisphere. There's a little bit more love for adrenaline on the right hemisphere. Why? Because the right hemisphere is looking for our threat. I have 2 different patients in my office right now. I have a patient right now who has an overactive right hemisphere, and she has depression, excruciating, debilitating depression. I have a patient on the other side who has an underactive right hemisphere and an overactive left hemisphere, and she's the happiest person you're going to meet. Why is she happy? Because she doesn't have any threat. She doesn't see threats at all. She doesn't even understand that she's threatened because her left hemisphere is just happy-go-lucky, gives you an undue cheerfulness. And it all came from Dr. McGilchrist that explained that to me. He broke down that, which mapped out to Dr. Hall, which came through the middle of the meaning of things with Dr. Peterson, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It does make a difference in the product that we offer at The Rock. It does make a difference in the outcome of your health when we apply all these things that we have learned. Man, that was fast. I knew that was going to be fast. We've run out of time. I appreciate you listening. I hope we're helping you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I look forward to seeing you again on Monday night. Oops, maybe not Monday night. That's Leslie's birthday. I got to take that girl out to dinner. So we may have a rerun show on Monday, but I'll see you Tuesday for sure. You guys have a great week, great weekend. Call me if you need me, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.